Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to the podcast. On this episode, we're talking to a good friend of ours, Eric Clarke.
So Eric's a photographer here in Chicago, and he frequently does events when it's not COVID-19. We've known him for a long time because he shoots the Tony P events, and we're kind of always at Tony P events.
The theme of this show is really about, not putting yourself at harm's way, especially during a pandemic, even at the stake of putting some of your career goals on hold. It's more important to keep everybody safe. And also, no matter if you're getting paid or you're not getting paid, always do 100%. Because you never know where that client is going to lead you down.
Right. So it's a great conversation. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's coming right up. But if you don't like YouTube and you want to listen to it, you can find it on our Buzzsprout. But enjoy the show.
Enjoy the show.
And all of a sudden we're in COVID-19 and there ain't no
right.
event. No matter how hard Tony P tries, he can't possibly do an event until there's a vaccine and there's herd vaccination.
And I don't know if you got called in to do any Zoom event photography. That'd be kind of...
Please
Actually, I know before the pandemic, I was talking with Frank about this children's oncology camp that I volunteer for. Well, they had their camp this past August, but it was virtual. It was all done over Zoom, and they were like, Eric, we're trying to find a role for you because we love having you. We love you being a part of the camp. So if you could just hang out with the kids and just take screenshots and just send us the screenshots. I'm like, yeah, I can do that. So it was really boring because I was literally just sitting in my chair in this exact spot and pressing 2 buttons on my keyboard to do screenshots and then going through and then cropping them because it grabbed both screens. Because I had 2 screens and I was like, yeah, I can't send them both screens. That'd be weird. So I had to do a little editing on that, but the actual process was really dull because it was just okay, it's just people's faces. It's 6 or 7 faces, and then just screenshot, and then move on to the next breakout room and just do a bunch of screenshots. So honestly, the best part of that week really was just reconnecting with the staff and seeing familiar faces again and the kids. That was really what I was looking forward to the most with that, more so than the creative aspect of that.
Right. Yeah. So we're going to touch on that a little bit, and then whatever pivots, and then talk about photography in general, about what people are paying for in a photographer and why they should have photographers and not people walking around with their iPhones. not that that's bad, but that you should always, if you're going to try to do something, couple it up with, a professional, and then kind of talk about that. So a whole bunch of stuff.
Absolutely.
Jack will be burping the entire time, so you just got to get used to that. And then maybe yawning as well. He's notorious.
I don't usually burp, but I always yawn in the morning when he schedules these things for 6 o'clock in the morning. He's not even up, and I'm here trying not to yawn when this person's talking, and I'm like oh,
that's rough.
He does he does the face. He's goes. I'm not really yawning. I'm just blowing out my eye, through pursed lips. So great. Well, we're in conversation with Eric Clarke. Eric, we usually start off with you giving us a little information about, who you are and what you do.
Okay. I'm not really good at talking about myself, but I'll give it a whirl. So I'm a Chicago-based, a photographer specializing in corporate events. I have shot for several major brands around the city. I've done stuff for Netflix. I've done stuff for Walgreens. I've done stuff for Amazon, American Express. The list kind of goes on. I've been internationally published as an event photographer, which is kind of crazy if you think about it, because event pictures don't really get published, and mine have been published in the UK. And I've been agency represented as an event photographer, which is also pretty crazy because you wouldn't think event photography gets an agency behind it, but that's how I get connected with those big brands that I listed off and stuff. And I've just been running my own business, running the show for the last couple of years, and yeah, that's basically me in a nutshell.
Yeah. What did you do for Netflix?
Yeah, right.
Oh, so when it comes to like those big brands, the main draw for like their like documentation needs is like brand activations. So like the first shoot for Netflix, it was right around the time like the new season of Arrested Development came out.
Okay.
And they had like, I've never seen the show, so I don't really know much about it, but they just had like these dudes painted blue, like they were like the Bluth dudes or something like that, or Bluth dudes. And they were just like running around Chicago handing out hats and flyers and buttons and stuff. And they just wanted, coverage of that.
Yeah.
So they hired me. Yeah. It was a fun day. It was a long day. Excuse me. It was a really long day, but it was a blast. Yeah. And the second one they hired me for was just last November when right before their new Christmas movie came out. What was it called? Klaus? I think it was just called Klaus. And they had like this giant like present, this big gift box in right by the Wrigley Building over there. And and they did like a live unwrapping of it, and they gave out like gifts to people on the street, and like it was like negative 16 degrees, I think, that day. So like there was like so few people that came through, but they were like, we're gonna do it anyways. So they brought me on board, and
it's like, hey, we didn't wrap these guys up in this present for nothing. Yeah, right. They got to get out of there eventually, right? So we got to get this going.
Yeah, and the Boys and Girls Club of Chicago showed up at the end, and like that was like the big draw. So there was like a group shot of that and stuff, and it was a really good day. And then I went and I shot a 20p event right after that.
Oh, so that's a long day.
That is a long day. That's a long day. But you know what? Nobody ever really thinks about the photographer or the people that are actually out there shooting. And as you know, we're filmmakers or just everything with motion. Nobody really thinks, like you mentioned that it was a long day following these guys who were literally running around the city taking pictures. That's a long day. That's a long day because they're running around without a care in the world, and you're sitting there trying to think logistically, all right, well, where are we going? And how am I going to get there, right? Yeah. You're just running around. I got all, I got my bag. I got the cameras, right? I got to make sure that we're set up, and that if they decide to do something impromptu, that my gear is safe, right? Or am I hanging on to it the entire time? Which
I hung on to it the entire time.
Yeah, then case, that's a lot of pressure on your bag. Nobody thinks about that stuff. Like that's a huge thing. That's something that they have to think about. So we've only shot one Tony P event, and that was the cannabis one, the first one.
Okay, that was a good one. Man, that was wall to wall people. That was nuts.
Yeah. No, that
was ages ago though.
That was ages ago.
Probably
almost a year ago.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, almost a year.
Yeah. In January.
But there is a lot of, and maybe we could talk about this, but the need to take pictures because you feel like you're going to miss something, and then also knowing that you can't possibly take pictures of everything. Like you can record a whole entire event. But at the end of the day, nobody's going to watch it. So it's almost like turning it off and being like, I have enough. I don't have to continue to take. I don't need 5,000 pictures to do this whole event, right? It's like, I know that at the end of the day, what's going to be posted up on a Facebook or on a website or anything like that, it's going to be probably 10, 15, maybe 30 pictures of the entire event to kind of document it.
With the highlights.
Right.
My kind of mindset though is like, I do shoot everything. I can show up and I try to get, as much as I can. And then on the back end of it, like I go through the stuff and that 5,000 pictures, that'll come down significantly to 300 pictures. And that's what gets delivered to the client. And from there, they decide which ones that they really want to use. So that way they don't have to go through all 5,000. They just have to go through a small percentage of that and, figure out, that picture's really great. And that picture's really, they're all really great, but we don't want to use all of them. So we're going to just pick out the ones that we really love.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So
it can get, I don't know. I just feel like it can get overwhelming. Maybe that's just me. Like if I
it definitely can. And when I first started out, the turnaround time I was given on images was not very good. Just because I'm a trigger happy with the camera. So I shoot in burst mode, And, that way I get pictures where people's eyes are open instead of like eyes closed, or like funny faces and stuff like that. I'm able to like make sure I capture the moment properly through a burst, instead of just trying to like time it and like, oh man, like looking back, like, oh man, like I should have took that picture like a split second later because so-and-so's mouth is like wide open, so doing bursts, you avoid that problem, but you end up walking away with just a ton of images. And when I first started doing event photography, I'd be like, man, I don't want to go through all 5,000 of these pictures. I don't want to do it. I just don't want to do it.
Right.
And I would sit down and it would take all day. Mm-hmm. And then, the client would be like, hey, where are the pictures? I'm like, oh, hey, I'm still working on it. But like over time, I definitely got more efficient at that and developed a more stable workflow. And like, that's everything. Like workflow is everything. Mm-hmm. So once I got all that established, like I could take, a Tony P event and turn around and deliver it to him next day.
Yeah.
Because of how more efficiently I work versus where I was like 3 or 4 years ago.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, even when we're doing now with the podcast, we're totally proud to say that, with the James McGinnis podcast for our loyal listeners, mm-hmm. that was recorded on Wednesday. And we put out our podcast every Thursday at noon. We recorded that on Wednesday. Now, it's not it's not just the audio editing, because this is also YouTube, so there's video as well, right?
Oh,
so right, but it's a combination of both. So you have the audio aspect of it, but then you also have the video aspect of it, and it's not necessarily the difficult part of like leveling everything is fine. I mean, you could do that within 10, 15 minutes, but then you got to listen through the whole thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
To find, right. To find Jack's phone go off, or to find, the fact that you didn't know that this was going to be on YouTube, but we figured that you were a guy, and most guys don't really mind that all that much.
Yeah, I'm fine. I cleaned up my office a little bit before I hopped on.
Well, that was more for our benefit, not for our viewers' benefit.
Sure.
But so you have both aspects of it, and that takes a lot of time. And that was a 1-day turnaround, but we were able to do it because that was our 34th episode.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And at that point, you start to get into this, workflow. Yeah. And you're like, okay, yeah, I can do this. Yeah. I know how much time this is going to take.
The hardest one is the first one. The second hardest one is the second one. And the third hardest is the third one. And the 36th hardest one is the 36th one you do. I mean, it just keeps getting easier because you keep figuring it out and grinding it out and understanding, oh, well, this works better. Oh, well, you know what? Now that we're doing the YouTube stuff, Jack, you can edit the video part so that he doesn't have to. So he doesn't have to watch it a fourth time.
I watch the podcast many times. I make sure that everybody sounds relatively intelligent.
Oh, good. Then I'm
relatively. Relatively.
Yeah, relatively.
Okay.
I can only do so much,
Sure.
Just like when you take a picture of somebody, it's like, I want to look like Britney Spears. It's like, well, I can make you relatively look like.
Yeah.
I don't know if you really want to look like Britney Spears now.
What about 2001?
Her? No one's saying that I'm going to look like. If you
she was the first person that popped into my head.
All right. Well, here's a man who's still living in 2001.
There we go.
But going back to what you were talking about with, I guess what Frank was talking about with not taking 5,000 pictures, and then what you were talking about getting more efficient with taking 5,000 pictures. The only, in terms of when I was starting out as a writer, a lot of the times what I wanted to do was describe every part of that scene, like really deep dive into every part. And what one of my teachers who was reading it, she was like, these just look like, it sounds like a bunch of images. Like you say, there's a wall, and then there's a picture on the wall, then there's like a sun that bounces off that picture that's on the wall. And it just becomes kind of like, yes, you're describing everything, but I'm not seeing anything. So it comes back to you could take, if like what Frank was saying, like I'm afraid of missing something. And then you were saying, well, I shoot everything so I don't miss anything. But there's also the happy medium of being like, people will understand, like going off a Tony P event, people understand what happening at a Tony P event you know, you don't have to capture every single moment unless...
Well, not every single one of somebody handing a business card to somebody else.
Yeah,
or every laugh.
Not every laugh. Not even every speaker.
Right.
Not even every question. And you could get the idea of a Tony P event. And that's exactly like what it is when... Now it's like broad strokes when you're trying to...
Right.
Because that's what people can digest. There's a certain level of 5,000 pictures that... If you put an album on Instagram, well, not even, you can't even do that on Instagram. But if you put 5,000 pictures of one event on Instagram, people are seeing 3 of them, and they're like, "Oh, wow,
exactly.
Another picture from this, another picture from Eric. Oh, wow, he needs to get a hobby."
Yeah, that's why like the editing down part of the workflow was so crucial. You know. And it's showing the best of the event, even though that you did capture everything. Like not everything has to be shown. It's just I like having it and not needing it versus needing it and not having it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then when you shoot an event, photography wise, and when you shoot it, videography wise, like you know, I'm sure you have this as well in your mind, is that you're editing certain things and you kind of pinpoint pictures. It's like, oh, well, that one's definitely like when I'm going back and I'm looking through these pictures, I know what segment I'm like, oh, I got one here, right? Like I know I'm using that one. That one doesn't matter. I already know that Tony's going to love it because you know that's his history, or I know this is a great shot. And then you're already kind of splicing it together. And of course, this is more video because I have to splice it together after to make some sort of a thing happen under a minute and be like, this is what happened. There was a whole bunch of people talking. There was marijuana and there were people that asked questions, you know? It's being able to tell the story throughout just like however many images you put up or whatever you put out there of what actually happened at it to try to entice somebody to document it, but also try to entice somebody to come to the next one.
Right. Yeah. That's the whole point of why Tony hired me in the first place was that, he was struggling to find like a reliable, good event photographer, which apparently is a thing. Like there's so many event photographers that aren't reliable for some reason. And, him and I kind of crossed paths like virtually before being like virtual was a thing before the pandemic. And he was like, hey, we've seen your work. We would love to like test you. Like, you can come and we'll let you partake in the event. We just ask that you also work. And like, I was like, okay, yeah, I could be a vendor. And then like for the cost of admission, that's fine. No worries. But I did it like 2 or 3 times. And like, I was mostly there to just like build myself. And make great images and walk away with great images that I could then use to like show off my skills to other people, like build a portfolio essentially. And like I've been wanting to get into the Tony P thing for a while because I've seen his stuff on Facebook. I'm like, okay, these look like huge events, and they were. They drew like 300 people, 300 to 400 people at depending upon what month it was, and he brought me on board and I got him these images and he's been using me like ever since. And that was well over a year ago. It was like almost 2 years ago now. Yeah. So, what's that?
No, go ahead.
I was just like, I kind of went on a tangent and I forgot where I was going with it. So
it happens all the time.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, but there is that we can kind of, transition a little bit into that about, like building up like some sort of portfolio or trying to work with somebody and then eventually getting paid for it. And I think it's a slippery slope for a lot of creatives because then all of a sudden, you're being asked over and over again to do free work all the time. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And it's like, at what point do you put your foot down and go like, all right, well, this is great. I got enough portfolio work.
Yeah. Right.
Right now it's time to have paid work so that, you can literally attribute a lot of people coming to his events consistently to your pictures, right? Mm-hmm. You could draw that parallel because first of all, nobody really know what was going on if they didn't see that, or they wouldn't know how big they were, or they didn't know, like whether or not it was worth their while to go had you not been there taking the picture. So at what point do you draw that line and go like, listen, you have to pay us to do this?
Right.
And you always have like the favor in your back pocket too, like we do with shooting. The one thing, the cannabis, is that still the one thing that we have?
Yeah,
our favor that we haven't called in yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we also were talking about doing a different thing that never ended up happening because they never scheduled anything. So they already owed us a favor,
right.
even though we never did anything.
Right. I was just trying to think. I was like, is that
is the favor, though.
It's good to have favors owed to you by people like Tony P. They have the connections all over.
He has so many connections. It's ridiculous. Yeah. But so going off of what you were saying with, where do you draw the line in the sand of like working for free versus not for free? It's definitely a tricky thing to figure out, and it doesn't come easy a lot of the times. But at the end of the day, it really just comes down to how much you value yourself and how much you value your own time and your own energy and your own work. Right. And, when you say enough is enough, because there's a difference between, working for a mutually beneficial arrangement and then being taken advantage of. Yeah. And unfortunately, that happens so much in this industry, especially with like, companies that are first starting out, and like that's okay to not have a budget, but if you can't offer anything, in exchange of services, like an actual trade for the services, then like it's pretty bogus to be asking people to come and work for free or work for exposure like that.
Oh yeah, nobody likes that. That's garbage.
No one likes. Everyone hates that term. Oh, we'll pay you an exposure, and like that's fine if you're like a teenager, or like if you're like in film school, or like you're literally brand new. It's like you need that content, because that's when you start building the portfolio. You work for exposure, but you work for your portfolio. It's more like working for your portfolio than for the exposure,
right?
So you can have that
experience. Yeah,
exactly. Then you have. Investment. Then you have that content to show other people, and then that leads to the paid work. And I've also learned that work kind of begets work, at least with the event industry. Because there's been so many times where I've gone to an event, and it'll be like this like tiny little thing. But, because I show up and I'm as professional as I am, and I got like the 2 cameras, they're all decked out, and I look really cool when I shoot. It catches people's attention, and, someone will walk up to me like, hey, I'm having this thing like next week. And like, I was thinking about getting a photographer, like, do you have a business card? And like, hand a business card. And like that one leads to the next one, which leads to the next one, which leads to the next one. And, also, when it comes to projects, you never know what kind of project might lead to a more successful thing. A couple years ago, I did this offshoot little promotional shoot for this Jewish community building organization. And like I went to it, and it was like the pictures they're okay. I like they were great pictures, because I mean they were pretty good pictures, but like I wasn't like thrilled with the content that I created.
Sure, it happens.
But apparently the client was. Okay. And like 2 months later, they call me and they're like, hey, we're having this big company retreat for this weekend, and we can pay you like this large sum of money to come because we love the pictures that you did for that other thing. I was like, oh, well then, yeah, of course I'll be there. So like, like you never know like what opportunity will lead to an even bigger opportunity.
Right. You're just hoping that that's more of a step ladder in pay rather than like, because you can fall into that trap of the exposure, because what you just said is essentially what people are trying to sell you on, right? It's like, oh, take pictures of our event, and then some random dude's going to come up to you and say, hey, I need a photographer, and then you hand them their card, right? And that does happen if you're out there and you're shooting. I mean, that we ended up getting in contact with one of the guys that does CBD testing, right? And he kind of dabbled in film, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And he's like, and he looks at me and he's like, I can tell that your eyes are thinking about your next move, right? Because I have the camera in my hand and I'm looking. Right? Mm-hmm. He's like, I'm watching your eyes. I'm like, that's kind of a weird thing to say if you don't know what you're talking about. Right?
Yeah, it's kind of creepy, isn't it?
I took it as I took it as a compliment because he was like studying me as to what I was doing because it was like it's a hobby. Essentially, it was a hobby for him.
Was that the same person who said, I knew you were going to shoot through the mirror before you did?
Oh, no. Yeah, right. He saw me shoot through the mirror. He's like, I knew you were thinking about shooting through the mirror before you actually went over there and did it.
Yeah.
You know? And I was like, because, you know, when you're shooting an event, it's essentially, you're going to get very much the same stuff over and over again. So you're like, well, what kind of funky thing can I do?
Yeah. What can you creatively to make it different than, you know, anyone else's event?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Which is kind of tough because a lot of those event spaces are pretty bare.
Yeah.
Except for the stuff they put on the table.
Yeah. So some event spaces are just awful to shoot in. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I've been on a couple event shoots where it's like, man, this event is great and like I could get good content, but the space is just like it's so rough to shoot in.
Yeah.
That, like I'm not getting like good content from it.
Yeah.
You know, and that happens, you know, and usually the client is really understanding because they're like, yeah, we know we booked like the darkest space we could in Chicago. So we know that you're not going to get great images here.
Right. Or not like, the place that we were both shooting at the same time was at the Hubbard Inn.
Yeah.
And I love the candle stuff on the piano. Or was it
piano?
Yeah, it was a piano.
You know, Hubbard Inn's pretty great, but when they have it set up with all those chairs and stuff for the panel discussion, it's tough to like move and get like various angles and, you know, get the shot. So, you know, it's a lot of like, oh, hey, pardon me. Oh, hey, excuse me. Oh, hey, you know, I'm just going to squeeze past you here. Like a lot of that. And luckily the crowds that, you know, that Tony P kind of draws are all really, really great people. So like, I've never had an instance where someone's gotten upset with me for like, you know, trying to get the shot. Cause like everyone's like, yeah, you know, do your thing. Yeah. Go get the shot.
Yeah, right.
So everyone's like really supportive of that, which is a big help when it comes to creating good content.
Yeah, I think that was one of the first, and you know that our father's a photographer. That's how we got into this whole thing. Yeah. And that was one of the first things that I was taught with a video camera in my hand was the don't worry about bothering people. It's like you're there to shoot, so go.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember at our sister's preschool graduation, right? He may not remember this. Our sister's preschool graduation, I have the camera in my hand, and they're doing like a stupid dance. You know how preschool graduations are. And I'm so far away shooting this in a gymnasium, right? Yeah. And Dad pushes me. He's like, you got to go in front, right, to get Megan, right? Because she's all the way over there, right, in the back, of course. And I'm like, I'm not going to bother these people. I'm not going to get in front of them. I'm not going to get, you know, like whatever. It's like, no, you just have to go. And I did not go at that time. So, and that footage has been long gone for a very long time. If we're looking at, you know, the ancient history of Frank's cinematography talent, not going to see that footage.
We also have some of him shooting our vacation in Colorado. And
I was rough at the beginning. I wasn't traditionally schooled.
Everyone's rough at the beginning, even if you are traditionally schooled.
Yeah, right. So,
I mean, I don't know of anyone who's been traditionally schooled since...
Since four? I guess that's more of a music type thing. You're traditionally schooled. You're playing the harpsichord at 4.5. But anyways, like to not feel like you're there to do a job. So go and cut in front of people, even if they do give you like a look. It's like camera.
Yeah,
camera needs to go here.
one of the things that differentiate good event photographers from bad event photographers is how they approach people. Mm-hmm. You know, because even though a lot of clients will say, oh, hey, we don't want like posed pictures, like having the posed pictures still means a lot to them. So like walking up to groups of people and asking them to get together for a picture, like when I first started out, like that was like a nightmare situation for me because my social anxiety is like, I don't want to talk to people. I just want to come and I just want to like be a fly on the wall and just take pictures and no one notice.
Right.
But you know, there was an event that I got hired for, and that's all I got hired for was for those posed pictures, and I was like, oh no,
right?
You know, you know, I did it because they were like, Eric, if you're not going to do this, we have to send you home and find someone else. I was like, you know what, I'm here, I'm going to do it. Don't worry about it. We'll get it done. And from that moment on, like I was like way more comfortable with approaching people for pictures, because like there's that level of like almost embarrassment where like you don't want to interrupt the conversation kind of thing. But you know, no one's ever really given me any trouble for like having their picture taken with a group of people, because people love that. People love, you know, showing that they've been at this big fancy event with this group of people, you know, and you know, it's going to be all over Facebook, and like, you know, like people respond really well to like to those situations.
And most people that go to those events, they're not in their PJs, so they're like all decked out, waiting to
get
they
want
a photo
to be
taken.
They want their picture taken. Yeah,
they're not in a stained T-shirt with ripped holes in their sweatpants, being like, "Oh no, I wasn't here to take pictures." Just be like, "Oh God."
I mean, every now and then you do encounter a character like that who's
like, you know, and then they kind of walk away from the group, but you still get like,
or they just simply just approach you and ask you like, "Hey, like I don't want my picture taken," and then you just, you know, you're self conscious of that throughout the whole event. It's like, okay, that person doesn't want to be in the picture, so it's not you know, you gotta pay attention to like people's comfort level at the same time, and that's a whole other like hurdle to tackle, or jump. You jump hurdles, right? You don't tackle hurdles.
Not if only
the bad runners tackle hurdles.
you gotta tackle those hurdles. Let me tell you, as a former 300 hurdler, I can tell you, people who tackled those hurdles, they always came in last place.
You don't want to jump hurdles. That's right.
Right. Well, it's like you're the manager of a room, and you start to like almost get like this, like not godlike, but like, you know, like this overseeing view of the room, and you know where you are, you know where things are happening, and you kind of can tell where the people are that didn't want you to record them or gave you a weird look, or those people that are hyper aware of the lens, which is always very irritating. Where they just like,
I hate that. You know, because like they ruin candids, because once they know their picture's being taken, you know, that candid moment is
gone.
Just gone forever.
Yeah, that was one of the things too that, I mean, our dad is extremely good at, is the ninja effect, right? It's like you don't know he's there. However, over the years, we have gotten good at finding him in a crowd if the camera's pointed at us, like you know like that eighth sense type thing.
Yeah, well, you know what? Someone had told me a couple of times, they're like, why you always look like you're posing? And it's like, well, you didn't grow up with my father. You don't know when your picture's going to be taken.
That's funny.
Right. Yeah, so always posing. I'm probably the worst person for candids then.
No, that's not true. It's got plenty of good candids of you, but like, so it's that awareness of the entire room.
Yeah.
Of like what's going on, how to get to like what picture you're getting taken, or what you're trying to get and what you're trying to capture,
and you know, trying to be everywhere at once, which is a skill all into itself. And apparently, I've been told that you know, I'm really good at it, because several people have commended me for that ability, like to my face. They're like, Eric, you're so good at just like being everywhere at once. We don't know how you do it. I'm like, yeah, I don't know how I do it either. But
yeah, right.
Better not analyze it too much, otherwise you're going to be tackling hurdles.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
How did I get here? So with COVID-19 being what it is, and it doesn't look like live events are going to come back until maybe 2022. May. I'm thinking it's 2022. I don't know.
May.
For me, it just seems like it's just
until May.
Well, I hope it's May, because I'm getting married in May. So that would
right. Well,
that would be nice.
Nope. Zoom wedding.
Zoom wedding. Well, we already have the venue booked, and it would be very costly if it was going to be a Zoom, because we'd have to get out of the contract.
Yeah, I can't believe they're still leaving. Like, there's no like get out clause with the.
Well, there's a postpone clause. So if we wanted to, we could push our date back for no cost. But because my fiance is a doctor and she's going to start fellowship like the following month, there's like, it's now or never. You know, because like that first year of fellowship, she's going to have zero time for anything.
Yeah, right.
And I'm going to have to learn how to cook.
I mean, well, first of all, she's a doctor, so you should be cooking.
Yeah, right there.
So I was not put on I was not put on this earth to cook.
Well, you know what? You're creative. You're creative. Just act like you're taking pictures. I mean, our father's a great cook.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's the photographer, cook, and then our mother's a forensic scientist. Very similar, actually.
Yeah, right.
The parallels between you guys.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So that's how that works there. You'll learn.
Yeah,
You'll get there.
Learn how to cook. It'll be
as far
easy.
as I know, Mom did start cooking early on in the relationship, and then Dad kind of took over after.
You don't want my mom to cook.
You don't want Mom to cook.
Okay, fair enough.
You're a great cook, Ma. She doesn't listen anyway, so.
Yeah, but but with events being postponed, you've had to kind of pivot a little bit, and I've seen that you've done a lot of stuff for Grubhub. I'm wondering, like, what's the next chapter going to be for you?
Yeah. I tried getting into the restaurant scene, and the Grubhub was going to be that stepping stone because like they weren't paying me a lot, but it was like my entrance into like the restaurant world, my in with the restaurants, as it were. And you know, I was shooting the way that Grubhub wanted me to shoot, but then I would also go and I would shoot it the way I wanted it to shoot it. Because they were very different. Because Grubhub wanted, you know, like shots only one way, and I was like, yeah, but like the restaurants are going to want pictures like more than just that one way,
right?
And then I would take the pictures that I did myself and like, hey, restaurant, here are your pictures that Grubhub didn't use and probably doesn't want me sending you, but I'm sending you anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, that was, you know, then the people were going to be like, oh, Eric, we're going to have you back, you know, for our whole menu. And I got sick like shortly after that. It wasn't the COVID, you know, but like it was just like a cold. And I was like, ooh, that's kind of like a wake up call. Like maybe like I shouldn't be like, I should just be playing it safe right now. You know, why, you know, risk my health when I don't need to? Because like my bank account's looking pretty good. You know, I got money. Like I don't need to be hustling right now. And, you know, hustling during a pandemic doesn't sound very ideal. So I'm taking work as it comes in when it's a big project.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I did this like healthy, like lifestyle, slice of life thing for this, healthcare company. I forget, but you know, people tell me what the shoots are for, and it goes in one ear and goes out the other. I just show up and I take pictures. You know.
Yeah, right.
But you know, that was a couple weeks ago. That was a well-paying thing, and that was worthwhile. But like going out to make like $60 for a restaurant for DoorDash is just like I'm gonna stay home and be safe. So like for all intents and purposes, I would say my career is on pause. Excuse me, on pause right now because I don't need to risk it. And if anyone's listening right now that's like thinking about, oh, like I'm sitting doing nothing, but I want to be doing something. Like if you don't need to be out there, then don't be out there. Like because it's not worth, you know, the nastiness of what COVID can cause to your system. It's just better to be safe and keep each other safe, you know?
Yeah. And
that's kind of where my headspace is at. And I've done some live events. They do still happen. They're just very few and far between, and they don't draw the crowds that they used to. So like back in June, I did this priest ordination for some Catholic church out in some suburb. I think it was out in St. Charles, maybe. And it was a long project. You know, it started at 10 and I think it wrapped at like 5. And that was the service. The service was that long. And it was like, you know, eventually there was that moment where it's like, man, like all this stuff just looks the same because I've been in the same space for 6 hours and, you know, it's, you know, people at the altar, they're giving speeches. It's like, how much of that can you make look different? So,
right.
You know, it just became like this like assembly line cookie cutter kind of shoot. It's like, okay, so-and-so is up. Okay, shoot. Same 3 shots that everyone else gets. Okay, you know, same thing again over and over and over again. So it's stuff like that. And I know Tony P did try to have something back in July. And he was so excited for it. I was so excited for it because it was going to be at offshore. And like him and Greg were both trying to get into offshore since like offshore opened. And they finally, were able to schedule something. And I think because there were so many cancellations because of COVID, that they were able to book an event there. And unfortunately, it rained.
Yeah.
And Navy Pier has this thing in their like insurance clause that they can't allow outdoor events during the rain, even though it was like a drizzle. Like it was like a nothing rain. They're like, yeah, we can't have anybody outside. And we're like, okay. So they put us in this like really dull, like conference space. And, people were still having fun. And like, I still captured great moments of people having fun. But, the pictures weren't what Tony and I were expecting them to be, because it was like, oh, this is just, generic conference space, not the biggest outdoor roof bar in the world.
Right. Right. Is it the biggest outdoor roof bar in the world?
Someone told me that once. I don't know if it's true. I'm just,
one of the biggest in the city, maybe biggest.
Yeah. Well, that's safe to say. It's biggest in the city, but it's maybe,
and we can say biggest in the Midwest.
In the Midwest, how many other places have large roof bars in the Midwest?
We're gonna find out. Normal, Illinois is the biggest in the
world. Bloomingdale has the largest rooftop.
Yeah, right. It's amazing. The whole thing is a rooftop.
Yeah, it's basically the whole town.
It's a parking lot. It's a little bit of a walk to get to the bar, but
yeah. And the reason why they get away with that is because the whole town is actually a garden apartment, so the whole town underneath. So that's why it's a rooftop.
Hey, don't knock garden apartments. I lived in one for like 3 years. They're great. Stays warm in the winter, stays cool in the summer. Can't beat it.
Yep. There's especially with like with offshore in general. And I know like we can go back to like how excited everybody was when it was kind of the, pandemic seemed like it was slowing down, even though all the graphs kind of showed like where we think we are, like it was all the way down here, and then where we actually are. It's like
all the way up there. Yeah.
But we feel so much better. And how excited Tony was or everybody was for the networking events to come back. And I remember looking at it and I was like, nah, I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to go. And
tickets were so limited for that. He only sold like 50.
Yeah.
I think, and not all 50 people came.
Yeah.
I think at most we had like 35, and everyone was socially distanced, which also made it difficult to get pictures, because you want to get, crowded pictures. And if people aren't crowded, like creatively, how do you tackle that problem? And I made it work somehow, but
you have to have people standing behind them, and then the depth of field.
Yeah, you just get that long lens and compress your background. Yeah.
Yeah, right,
exactly.
Right. Then all of a sudden it looked like there were 200 people there.
Yeah, right, exactly.
But Tony was standing there by himself with mannequins behind him.
Yeah. It was a good event. Everyone was safe. People wore masks when they were supposed to wear masks and whatnot. So I know that there were some people on social media that was giving him a really hard time about having an event, and it's like he followed all of the mandated rules and regulations. And like I was impressed with the precautions everyone was taking. At that event back in July, and it was fun. It was a good time. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It wasn't what it used to be, because it wasn't the same crowd, and it couldn't have been the same crowd.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And we were planning on shooting something ourselves.
Yeah.
We were planning on shooting a proof of concept for a web series that we've mentioned plenty of times on this podcast that we were going to shoot at the end of March.
Like when the lockdown happened.
Yeah,
we were pretty much locked. We had our cast meeting in end of February, and we were gearing up to go. We were getting the locations down, and
then my point was that like around July, I reached out to everybody again to see if they were comfortable going out and shooting something, and we shot one thing. We're going to shoot another thing on this upcoming Sunday, but that'll be in the past when this gets posted. You know, for another nonprofit. But it's like, you know, when you're shooting anything, you know, I think that this is just now going to become kind of the norm of being, you know, trying to make sure that everything's socially distant, or trying to make sure that, you know, when you're shooting something on a set or shooting an event or anything like that, is trying to kind of put in some of these safety precautions in, you know. I don't think it's ever going to really go away. I think that this has put a permanent scar on America. I mean, this is going to be like,
for at least the next 3 to 4 years, you know, this is going to be the mindset when it comes to interacting in large groups. You know, and of course, there's those people that like don't care, they don't think, you know, it's that big a deal. But then there's the other people that are super cautious too, and like I'm one of those people that's super cautious. So when I am on a project, no matter what it is, even if it's, you know, a small thing with just a few people, like I did a few weeks ago, I got a mask on the whole time. You know, I got a face covering of some kind. I don't do gloves because I don't really think that's really that important, because, you know, you wear gloves, it's still going to be on your gloves. So like you can't like, you just wash your hands more often. It's kind of like where my mind is.
Don't touch things that aren't yours.
And you know, and I try to keep my gear pretty clean. Like I got these alcohol wipes from the Costco that I wipe things down with. Just, you know, get stuff in bulk like that. You know, that's the way to do it.
Yeah. I don't necessarily think it's gonna. I mean, I definitely for the next, maybe we'll say 2 years, it's gonna be a little bit like that. But I also think that when it comes to these kind of pandemic things, we tend to, as a society, have a really short attention, or like short memory with it. Like like I didn't even know the Spanish flu happened. I had no idea. And you talk about the 20s, no one seemed to care about social distancing in the 20s. So I think that it's going to be something where I think next time there is a pandemic, we're going to be much better prepared for it.
Right. Well, that's my point. I think that even if there's a whisper of something going on in the world,
people are going to
mask up. And that's the way that Asian countries have been.
Yeah,
they have all been. It's just been like, what's going on around now? It doesn't matter. I'm putting on a mask and I'm going to be outside. But hey, nothing's going on. I'm still going to have a mask.
And,
you know?
And no one there complains about wearing masks.
No,
you know?
No. And eventually, right? Because we're America, we're untouchable. We didn't think anything could happen to us, and now here we are.
Yeah. Boy, were we wrong.
Right. Well, you know what? For a long time, the what was that called though? What was it called? The Anaconda Plan. What was it called? Not Manifest Destiny. What was the whole thing that we weren't going to get involved with other people's affairs? Help me out here, Eric.
Let me Google it.
Remember, it was like we're not. It was Teddy Roosevelt said it. He was like, we're not getting involved with other people's affairs. We're not getting involved with Europe. It was something with an M.
I'm not going to think of it, but I know what you're talking about.
Okay, yeah. So, but that for a very long time we were secluded in that way, where everything was happening across oceans.
Oh yeah.
And we were here, and if we didn't choose to get involved, we didn't get involved, and nobody came back over here. It was way too much gas to get all the way over here to get us involved in something. But yeah, so that's gonna be kind of the way forward, especially with events. Looking forward to them coming back.
And they will, because we're social creatures. So there's this kind of like drive for everyone to want to interact with each other again, and they're going to be different for sure. Especially once the vaccine is released and people take the vaccine and we start to bounce back from things, the event scene is going to be very different. The corporate event scene especially is going to be very different because a lot of corporate events are driven by incentive. So they'll have some company will have a conference, but it won't be in the same town that everyone works in. It'll be somewhere else. Like most conferences are traveling conferences. So they don't happen in the same city all the time, which makes it difficult to have repeat clients in that kind of way. So a lot of companies have Chicago as their destination for their 3 or 4 day conference. That might not be as much of a thing anymore because Zoom has gotten to be such a thing. And why travel to some city for a conference when we can just Zoom it and save a ton of money? It's going to be, everyone's concerned about their bottom lines, and like office spaces are also going to be like completely different moving forward because, companies aren't going to need to rent out an entire floor in the Sears Tower for all their employees when most of their employees are working from home and are just as, efficient working from home as they were coming into the office. They're going to need like a tenth of that space. Yeah. So there's going to be a lot of restructuring in the world, not just in events, but in everyday life, I think.
Yeah. Well, I haven't really heard any real estate people kind of talk about it, but I mean, do they understand the gravity of what that would mean for buildings in general? I mean, if you're I'm not renting my floor anymore.
Well, I think what will most likely happen is instead of one company having an entire floor, it'll be a couple of companies. It'll be like 5 or 6 companies that just, divide the space between themselves.
Right.
And spaces like 1871, I don't think are going to be affected because that's more of like a co-op kind of thing.
You're going to see a lot more of that pop up.
There's going to be more of that for sure.
Yeah. But I also think that perhaps there might be more events then, because now because it's like, hey, we don't work from in the same office every day, so once a month we'll have this work event.
I didn't even think about that. That's a really good point. Yeah, like people that are all working from home, like, hey, let's all get together. Company reunions will be a thing, and it'll be like a monthly thing, and they'll hire me. Yeah, great.
Exactly. Yeah, right.
I love how you perked up right there because I think that's definitely an avenue for that because human interaction can't be replaced via Zoom. It's not like I'll see Eric via Zoom, once every 3 months and that'll be enough.
Yeah, there's
Eric. You're still going to want to see each other in real life and actually talk and see flesh color.
That face-to-face in-person interaction can't be replicated virtually.
No, there's a different vibe when someone's in the room.
Yeah.
Not to get all metaphysical, but your energy changes the space. There's something there. I mean, like I see you there, and I believe because of technology that you're actually sitting there. You're not some kind of, we're not in the Matrix, but it'd be totally different talking to you in person, where I can actually look at your eyes and actually you see me looking at your eyes as opposed to looking down.
Eye contact versus me looking into the camera or looking at my screen.
If I wanted to look at your eyes, I'd have to look into that camera, or I could look into this camera. But that's for the audience. You don't
just
see
for the audience. See, I got a really big screen for my computer, so like my camera's up here and you guys are down here. So
see, now that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes it, the whole virtual thing has been difficult for me for that aspect, and like I guess I could use a different monitor, but like I kind of don't want to.
I don't think you have to.
Yeah,
it's fine. But that's why I think that, and then you might actually make those team building like events once a month. They could actually be a lot more fun than seeing someone every day. It's like, I fucking hate Bill. Him and his stupid quarterly reports.
I can stand Bill in small doses.
Small doses. But what? And that would be a small dose. Yeah, for sure.
It would be a small dose of Bill with a beer in him, and he's fun with a beer in him,
Company happy hours.
Right.
There you go. Yeah, company happy hours.
Because I would prefer, right. I'd prefer Bill to tell me he needs those quarterly reports over Zoom, so he's not in my house or invading my space.
Right.
One of those things too, even from both a photography and a videography standpoint, for all those people that like to record live events or documentation type stuff, is that if you have even a weekly meeting where everybody comes in together to have a meeting, that because everything else has been recorded, they're going to want that recorded too. Because I'm recording this on Zoom, obviously for podcast reasons, but they're going to record every conversation. It's like, hey, what did we say in that meeting? But we don't have to just think or go back to the notes. We can actually watch it and find out what they. So then that will be a thing too.
Yeah, hopefully the companies recognize the need to have that in their offices.
Yeah, a lot of bets would be resolved.
There you go. Right.
Yeah.
No, I swear to God, you didn't say that. I did not. I did so. And then we watch it, and he's like, you didn't say it.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And then I won $20.
He's channeling something that I said he said, and he actually didn't say right now.
There's a lot of times where that's happened.
I know a couple times we've recorded it, and we didn't go back and look at it. So, Eric, this has been a great conversation.
Yeah,
It's been good catching up with you. We usually end off with some words of wisdom, anything that you want to share with the audience. You've gone through a major shift in just events because you're an event photographer and events aren't happening right now. So,
it sucks.
Yeah. Any words of wisdom other than that sucks?
Yeah, right. Well, the wisest words.
So, I guess coming back to a point that I made earlier. If you're in a place where you don't need to be hustling, don't hustle right now. Be safe, keep each other safe. Because it's not just about you, it's about everyone else as well. And there's people that are vulnerable in our society that, need us to help protect them. And that's I think up to us to do.
Yeah.
And then as for like a more professional kind of note to leave off on, if you're working with a client and you're not crazy about the shoot or whatever, still put out all your effort you can, because you never know what that client is going to give you opportunity wise down the road. Hopefully it's paid. Like, we don't want to work for free,
right?
But you always want to have that wow moment. You want your client to go, wow, I can't believe that they captured this, or they got this, or they delivered that. And that's the kind of thing that gets you hired again, that wow moment. So you really want to push to make good work whenever you can to wow the clients.
Yeah. Great. Well, I appreciate you jumping on. It was good to see you again. Hopefully relatively soon we'll be able to see each other in person.
Sure.
At another type of event.
Let me know if you want me to do something like this again. I'd be happy to hop on again.
Yeah. Well, we were supposed to go on a bike ride at some point.
Oh, right. Yeah. But now it's cold and windy.
Yeah. And now you don't have hair anymore, so
right. Wow, what a great conversation. I wonder if there was a place that they could go and watch more great conversations.
Actually, Frank, we've recorded over 35 great conversations, and they're all on Buzzsprout, and a couple of them are actually, like 6 of them are on YouTube right now.
Wow!
And if you don't really want to listen to another conversation, you just want to drink with us, well, we have a new episode of Stipulations coming out this Friday. So
they should be over here.
Hit the bell. We're posting every week, guys.